Okay, are we live? Hey everyone, hi, I'm Chetna, and today we are live from the Large Hadron Collider tunnel at Cern. At the back you can see the LHC tunnel, which is the flagship accelerator of Cern and the most powerful and largest accelerator in the world. So those of you who are still wondering what LHC stands for, Large Hadron Collider, it's called large because it's a 27-kilometer ring made of superconducting magnets that helps the beam be pushed in the most powerful speed possible, almost to the speed of light. Hadron because we collide particles like protons that fall under the category of hadrons, and collider because we are colliding a beam of protons. So today, this 27-kilometer LHC tunnel has 4 particle detectors: Atlas, CMS, Alice, and LHCb, which stands for Large Hadron Collider Beauty Experiment. But we're going to show you what's inside this tunnel. For example, there's a very special experiment called the Phasor Experiment, forward search experiment, that looks for new particles such as that can explain dark matter. And it's a very unique experiment because it can find what the 4 big experiments can't find. And why is Phasor located where it is? Its location is very special. So let's go and find it out. See you again. Join now. Oh, 1 second. We are going to the Phasor experiment at the back of the tunnel. Yay! So if you remember, we also came here in November, end of November, and at that time Phasor had 3 magnets installed, but now it looks slightly different. And let's see how it looks now. And with me, Michaela is going to join, who is an experimental physicist at Cern, and she will tell you more about the experiment. Okay.
Hi. My name is Michaela. I'm a fellow here at Cern, and I work on both the Atlas and the Phasor experiment, which you can see here. So what's really special about Phasor is that it's on what's called the line of sight of the LHC. So in the LHC at point 1, which is where the Atlas experiment is located, the proton beams are brought to collision, and if we have new particles that are produced that aren't detected by Atlas, they would go straight through the underground tunnels and cement and rock and be detected inside Phasor. So you can see here on this map where we are currently in the tunnel. So if you've been to Cern before ever, you see this is the Globe Theatre, and here is point 1. And 100 meters underground is where the Atlas detector is located. And where we are now is we've just walked around 480 meters along the length of the LHC beamline to Phasor. And we're in this tiny tunnel here, which is called TI-12. And this is now a disused tunnel, or was a disused tunnel. It was used back in the days of an old collider called LEP, which used to exist in the LHC tunnel, but now this tunnel is disused, and so it's now the home of the Phasor experiment.
So, Priscilla, Michaela, what's the magnet here?
So the blue things that you see, they're the magnets. We have 3 of these. And what we're looking for are particles like dark photons. So dark photons wouldn't interact with anything until they get to our detector, and then they would decay into 2 particles such as electrons. And the job of the magnets is then to deflect these electrons. So you have the positive, negative charges will go in opposite directions. And then we can measure the tracks of these particles with the other detectors that you see here. So we have these tracking stations, which are these metal aluminium things you see, which are supported by a bar. Yeah. So we have 1, 2, 3 tracking layers. And we also have scintillators, which convert, so if a charged particle goes through, this is converted to light, and they're very highly efficient detectors, so we know when particles are going through them. And at the very end, over here, we have the calorimeters, which measures the energy of the particles.
Okay. So last time when we were here, Jamie told us that Phasor is very close to the Atlas detector. Can you explain again why is it?
Yeah, so Phasor was actually constructed with quite a limited budget. And built very quickly. And so we reused a lot of components that were used by other detectors. So actually our calorimeter is spare modules from the LHCb experiment, and our tracking detectors were actually built originally for Atlas. So I have one that I can quickly show you. So inside our tracking detectors, which are here, we have on each layer we have 8 what we call silicon strip detectors. And so these were originally built for Atlas, and you see one here. So the Atlas detector has many, 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 many of these in the middle of it.
Okay.
And we have just a few that we have that we've repurposed for this experiment.
Nice. And so what does Phasor Experiment look for?
So we're looking for 2 main things. So the first is primarily dark photons. So these are new particles that could explain dark matter.
Yeah.
But Phasor also will be sensitive to studying neutrinos. So there are lots of neutrinos that are produced in collisions at the LHC, and Phasor is in an ideal location to also measure these. So for now, the Phasor experiment is complete, but actually in October, we will install a new part of the detector which will go on the very front, called Phasor New, and this will study neutrinos. So it's essentially a big block of photographic film. We'll try to detect these very elusive, weakly interacting particles. And in the meantime, while Phasor is inside the tunnel, in order to test the system and to fully commission it, we're actually taking data at the moment from cosmic rays.
Okay.
So on the surface, we expect rays from our solar system or other galaxies at around the rate of 1 particle per centimetre cubed per second. So down 100 metres underground, the rate's a little bit lower, but we can still use these rays to really commission our experiment and check that everything, all the parts of the detector are working correctly.
Can we go and see Phasor New?
So Phasor New is not in the tunnel currently,
Okay.
but this trench at the very front, so if we maybe go more to the front. So this is where Phasor New will be located eventually. So you see there's a hole, and this is where it will be located. So we're actually going to install the Phasor New detector plus another scintillator and another tracking detector. So this all has to be built and installed before the end of the year. Here you see the scintillator stations and also close up to the tracking stations. And what you also see here is the cooling that we supply to the tracking detectors. So each of the tracking modules has chips on them which get warm when they're under operation. So we cool these with just water that flows through the tracking stations. So this is just water that's kept at around 15 degrees Celsius. And this just keeps the detector operating nice and cool for the electronics. And so here you see the chillers that are responsible for this. They're a little bit noisy. But we have 2 chillers so that if one fails, the other one can kick in. And we have a big loop that just goes through the detector and through the tracking stations.
Yes. Your name? Yes. Speak up. You can speak up, Shatna.
So that was the Phasor experiment. If you have any questions, Michael is with us right now. Tell us where you are joining from, and don't forget to tell us your name, and then Michael will answer your questions.
Michaela, there was a question about funding. How did this project get funded?
That's a good question. So the Phasor experiment is supported by two institutes in the US called the Heising and the Simon Heising Foundations, as well as Cern also provides funding and support for the experiment.
So, question: how do Cern ensure the safety of the experimental physicists working there?
In terms of, I guess there's two questions related to that. One is in a pandemic, how do we work? And also in generally, how do we work? So Cern takes the safety of its employees very seriously. So you see that we are wearing dosimeters, which measure the amount of radiation that we personally receive while coming into the LHC. And in times of COVID, we also have to wear masks and disinfect common equipment. And so we also have proximeters which measure if we get too close to people and to also trace contacts.
How many scientists participate in this project?
So right now there's around 70 scientists on the Phasor experiment, so it's a little bit bigger than it used to be. And I think around 8 institutes from around 8 different countries in the world participate.
Another question from Aditya from India. Can Phasor detect dark matter? How?
So that's the goal. So Phasor can't itself detect dark matter because dark matter very weakly interacts with things. But what Phasor could detect is dark photons. So dark photons or other similar particles are what we call mediators to a dark sector. So the idea is that dark matter could consist of a particle or a range of particles that live in a different sector that we've not detected yet. But dark photons could mediate the force between this dark sector that we haven't seen yet and all of the other particles in the universe that we know of so far. So hopefully when the LHC runs again, we can maybe say whether or not dark photons could be an answer for dark matter.
And this is a personal question. Do you believe dark matter exists?
I do believe dark matter exists because we have so much evidence in the universe so from cosmological observations, we know that there is something that we can't explain in the universe. And so that I definitely believe in. What we don't know is what is the origin of dark matter, what's the nature of dark matter. This could be many different things, and I personally don't have a gut feeling of what the best answer is.
What kind of data do you get upon collision? I mean, for Phasor, how the data is managed?
So Phasor is actually quite unique for an LHC experiment because normally you have very high rates of data that are produced. So for example, in Atlas, you have to select what data you save. But Phasor here, we're in a very quiet location. We don't really have any background from the LHC, which you see is just very close to it. We don't have many particles, so the rock and the cement shield most of the other particles that are produced. And so we have quite a low rate of data, so we see around, we expect around 500 so-called events per second, which is very manageable. And this is then all stored on the grid computing, so it will be stored in several locations around the world.
What is exciting you the most about this project, with this project?
Oh, I had so much fun joining this project. So it's a relatively small group for a high energy physics experiment. So I really got to get my hands dirty and really took a leading role in particular the tracking detector, which was the part of the project that I was most involved in, and worked with, so as a Cern fellow I got to work with some very experienced, very knowledgeable and very motivated and enthusiastic people, and so it was a great experience for me from the learning side, but also from the physics that Phasor could accomplish is very, very exciting.
And some people are just joining, so they wanted to know more about the purpose of Phasor. Once again, sorry.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, so Phasor is the newest LHC experiment, and it's aiming to fill a gap that the other experiments can't accomplish, which is looking for long-lived, weakly interacting particles. So these are things like dark photons, which could potentially link to dark matter, and also high-energy neutrinos. So Phasor is unique because where we are right now in the LHC tunnel, we're 480 meters away from where the proton-proton collisions happen. And so any particles that would arrive here and be detected by Phasor would be A, something that can't be detected by another LHC experiment, but B, could potentially lead to a discovery of new physics.
And talking about new physics, can the standard model explain the existence of dark matter?
No, it can't. So this is one of the main reasons why we are enthusiastically looking for dark matter, because the standard model of physics has really held up well to all of the tests that we've put to it so far, but dark matter is not, unfortunately, one of the things that fits in. So it's very exciting to look.
Thank you very much, Michaela. I'm just scrolling down if I have any other question. If you ever found some dark matter, how could it used? I mean, how can you use it in your daily life or?
Oh, I mean, that's a very difficult question to answer because we don't know basically. But there are so many things in the past, so many discoveries in the past that have been made in science where we didn't expect to discover it, or we didn't know what the application might be in the end, and then it's used in everyday life. So for example, Cern created the World Wide Web in order to share data. Electrons now are used in electricity all the time, so we don't know, but I would be very excited to find out.
And how to become a physicist at Cern?
So the typical route to be a physicist at Cern would be to study physics at undergraduate, at university level, or engineering or computer science. There are many jobs at Cern, but if you want to be a research physicist, like I am, then study physics at university. Cern has an incredibly good summer student program. So this is available for people who are near the end of their undergraduate degree. I myself did that in 2011 and enjoyed it very much. And then after that, you can do a postgraduate degree, so a PhD. And then there are fellowship schemes at Cern and also at universities or laboratories around the world that are all involved in projects at Cern.
Thank you, Michaela. Do you think about other questions, Shetna?
So people have this perception that mostly physicists work at CERN. I want to know, have you come across any non-physicists involved in the experiment at LHC?
Yes, I mean, it's a very good point. So the physicists are the people who write the papers at the very end, but there are so many more people involved in an experiment than just the physicist. So if you think about the tunnel, so actually if you maybe look at just the way that it is now, this was an abandoned tunnel before. There were pipes everywhere, it was really a mess, and so there was an amazing civil engineering team at Cern that had a huge project to clean the tunnel, prepare it for the experiment, to dig this trench. So you see that Phasor is a little bit recessed below.
Yeah.
And this is so that it's exactly on the line of sight with the LHC and with the Atlas experiment. And so there's a huge civil engineering effort in order to do this while not disturbing the other activities going on in the LHC. And then we also have a huge team of engineers who built the mechanical structures, electrical engineers, build the electronics. It really is a big collaborative effort, not just physicists.
Question: how has the virus affected the development of this project?
Yeah, so it's quite a bit. So the original schedule, so it's affected the LHC schedule, which has been delayed a year, which has also affected the Phasor schedule. So at the very beginning of the pandemic last year, we were most concerned because actually our magnets, our lovely blue magnets that you see, the components of those come from China. And so our initial concern was we had this epidemic evolving in China. It was just in China at the time, and so we had this delay just on our project, which came from that. But then obviously as the situation progressed and it became a worldwide pandemic, then this had a more general impact on the delay of the schedule of the experiment. So I think we've been quite lucky that it's not affected us too much. The main way that it's affected us is that we have colleagues who aren't based at Cern, who are based in Germany, for example, who have not been able to travel as much to Cern to do the parts that they would want to do. And so the people who have been based at Cern have had to then end up doing a little bit more of the work, spend a little bit more time in the tunnel than maybe we were originally anticipating. But I think, we come together quite well to make it a success.
Thank you so much, Michaela.
Can we take a walk in the tunnel and show people?
I don't know, maybe we can ask our viewers here. Do you want to have a...
Would you like to go and see the LHC tunnel and have a walk with us?
Let's wait for the answers. Yes.
It's a 27-kilometer ring, so
Yeah.
we're not going to walk so much. Maybe you can get your bikes, but not right now. We can show you a virtual tour.
We'll just say thanks again to Michaela.
Thanks a lot.
All good for the rest of the experiment, the rest of mounting the experiment, and good luck for taking data.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being here and allowing me to explain Phasor.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, let's have a walk inside the tunnel with Shetna again.
Okay, so if you have any questions, for example, when is the LHC going to start again? Right now, LHC and all the experiments are working on upgrading to promote the beam to a higher speed. And we are expected to start it in 2022. Let's take stairs carefully.
Okay, I try to not have an accident here. There we go.
Is a very interesting place because in cases of emergency, this is the only place where you're recommended to take a lift instead of the stairs, because the lift is safe and built in such a way that it can survive difficult conditions. These are the beautiful magnets. It has blue color magnets, a bit of green and white color magnets.
Soon you're gonna have an article about the colors of the LHC.
Yes.
Stay tuned, right?
Yeah, so those of you who don't know where you can read the Cern articles, go and check out home.cern. So Cern.cern is a domain in itself, just like .com or .in for India. So yeah, because Cern was the birthplace of the World Wide Web.
And also, if you have questions regarding career at Cern,
Yes.
you should go to.
Again, careers.cern, and there you can see all the current opportunities. There are job opportunities not just for students who have graduated, but also if you are still a student in high school, you can join tournaments like Beamline for Schools. I think the deadline is still there. If you want to write a physics proposal that can be performed on an accelerator, then you can write your proposal in 1,000 words and submit it for Beamline for Schools. If you are a student in a university like me, then you can apply for technical student program or administrative student program. And yeah, if you are graduated, then you can look for different kinds of jobs in physics, civil engineering, and various fields. So if you want more lives like this, tell us where would you like to go next time, and we will try to take you there.
Thank you again.
Okay then, it's time to close the live. Hope you enjoyed it, and see you again next time.